Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. How are you?
Hello, Richard. I'm fine, and you?
Very well, thank you.
It's quite early down there, right?
Oh, no, not too bad. It's
Oh.
10 o'clock.
Oh, okay, that's okay. That's okay. It's almost dark here. So yeah, nice that you have made it. Finally, I get to talk to you.
Thank
It's not that easy for the German press actually to get in touch with the kind of independent studios. Sometimes
Oh, well,
a
very
little
good.
bit tricky because they usually don't have a European PR.
Yeah.
So we sometimes feel a little bit excluded, but obviously, since I got in touch with David, it somehow worked. It was really nice.
Great.
Yeah, um, yeah. I've played Shroud of the Avatar a couple days ago, and I ran into you at the marketplace. This is something that was a pretty exciting moment actually because when we have played Ultima Online like years ago.
Yep.
Um, it was always a rumor, There was like Lord British. Some people pretended to have seen you, or they just really had seen you on some server, whatever. And then, like all the years, it was always like the story you would tell on a campfire. And now,
Now you
uh,
have your own.
pardon?
And now you have your own.
And now we have seen you in Shroud of the Avatar. Will this happen more often? I mean, is this like a comeback of developers appearing in a game, or GMs or something?
Yes to all of the above. I mean, I play essentially every day. Um, Usually sometimes, usually either in the morning before the Austin team gets into the office, since I'm usually often here in New York. So about this time, a little earlier than this, or at the end of the day, here on the East Coast of the United States, 5 or 6 p.m. And I play for about an hour or two usually. But I play almost every day, not every day, but close. And so, most of the regulars in the game, the community leaders that are building towns and mazes and having PvP competitions and running welcome quests. Almost all those kind of community leaders see me fairly regularly, at least once a week,
Yeah.
and each individually. And I think that the only way we're really going to make this game the way the community hopes is if we are in the game playing alongside the community. If we, are not only by being there, by being in the game and playing it, it does two very important things. One is it obviously means we know how the game is functioning. We know what's working and what's not. But it also means we know how the community is using it, what things they're enjoying, and what things are either causing them difficulty or they would like to see improved.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that I and many of the other developers are in the game regularly.
But it's a different philosophy. I mean, most of the online gaming publishers, they say, "Oh no, GMs have no right to be in game. They have actually GMs don't have any rights pretty much anymore in a modern MMO or something." But this is a different philosophy to say, okay, we will just show up. I mean, it's no secret there are developers behind the world, and then it's a completely different philosophy. Is it like
Yeah,
an
that's
old school thing, or does it have to do with the like Ultima history? I mean, we are seeing now. I mean, we see Lord British back in game. I've seen Lord Blackstone, who's actually not appearing as Blackstone. I think he has a different name now, Starlong,
Dark
right?
Star. Dark
Yeah,
Star.
Darkstar, and then it's like Shroud of the Avatar. So the Avatar is back, obviously too. So is it like a little bit of a comeback thing, and which also includes that the people who work on the game appear in the game somehow with the personality or the mentality, philosophy or something?
All of that is true, and even to the point where not only are we appearing in the game, but we are in the story of the game. And so Dark Star is not only the project director, but he also is in the main story, and he has a purpose in the game beyond just being a developer, beyond wanting to understand the quality of the game and help work with the community. He actually has objectives that are different than Lord British's objectives, and so we role play in addition to game master while we are present.
So you're trying to lure the player in a certain direction of how to act properly.
Yes. Well, in fact,
Okay.
it's kind of funny because one of the things that me and Star talk about all the time is my Lord British persona is, of course, to draw people to the virtues.
Yeah.
And Darkstar's persona is to tell people not to live a life constrained by any rules, like even Lord British's, hypothetically positive rules, but instead to chart your own path. And so he believes in chaos.
Yeah.
And but while we role play that, in fact, the way we both lobby for rules changes in the game, I'm always the one pushing for more rules that allow players to live a more roguish life. The ability to steal things, the ability to sneak around. I'm always lobbying for the rules that might seem more like Darkstar, and Star is always lobbying for rules to keep everyone safe and comfortable and happy. So it's interesting. Our role-playing personas and our development personas are often opposites.
Yeah, I've encountered that too. I remember when I played Ultima Online, I followed Lord Blackthorn, obviously, because I actually, as a German, we have the Prussian rules, the Prussian virtues here. And it was, even though I grew up with these virtues and I kind of follow them, I found that in a computer game it might be more interesting to simply choose the opposite role and then play a little bit of a god of chaos and abusing certain systems and exploiting things. And but the interesting thing is, from what I've heard, those virtues, they are originally from the Buddhism, right?
Well, Buddhism was the closest touchstone, but it's not exactly Buddhism either. I did a lot of research about virtue and vice and comparative religious philosophy throughout the development of Ultima, starting with Ultima 4, and by all means, the one that I was the most enamored with was Buddhism. But Buddhism really focuses on compassion and love, kind of one of the three. I settled on truth and love and courage, and which is unique in moral philosophies. But can be found in popular literature, obfuscated to some degree. For example, if you think of you've probably seen the old American film The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And the scarecrow who's looking for a brain, you could imagine on the quest for truth. Mm-hmm. The Tin Man looking for a heart, you could imagine on the quest for love. And the Cowardly Lion, of course, is in the search for courage. And so what I had discovered, I would actually say that's a closer touchstone than even Buddhism, is that as I was looking for modern sets of rules, I had studied and then dismissed things like, for example, the Ten Commandments. Mm-hmm. I don't happen to be a believer in the Ten Commandments. I think they have some duplicated ideas and are missing some important ideas. I looked at the 7 deadly sins, but again, I found them that while they make great horror movies, I didn't think that as an ideals as to what would really define the way to live a good modern life. Yeah. I didn't feel that it was really complete. And then when I discovered Buddhism, I said, well, at least now we're getting close. This at least is something that is, something I at least don't outright disagree with. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't really as good for a game mechanic. And then I put up on a wall in front of me on Post-it notes, I put down every virtue and every vice that I could think of after all of this research, and then began to sort it into piles of things that were related to each other, like love and compassion are clearly related. Yeah. And as I did that sort up on the wall, I realized I could sort things into piles that were related to things that are, concepts of truth and, honor and respect, then concepts of love and compassion and caring, and concepts of courage and valor and standing your ground and standing up for what you believe in, etc. And so I sort of saw this pattern emerging, and then I recognized that this pattern had already been seen in other forms of popular literature, and so that's why I settled on it.
Okay, but it obviously allows. It's obviously pretty nice for a virtual world environment. Like people can understand it pretty easily, and they can choose one side. I think, or maybe is this the real role play? I mean, people are kind of bored of playing orcs or elves or whatever on a role playing server of a regular role playing game. So this might be a different approach that is more interesting to people again to really role play themselves in some way.
Yeah, and so even though obviously the philosophies that I talk about, I don't intend for it to be literally a religion. I don't think it is truth of the universe with a capital T, as is as one might claim of a real religious doctrine. However, I did arrive at it by doing very real research into moral philosophy, and so while it's not truth with a capital T, I believe it has appropriate resonance with the reality in which we live. And so I actually think it's a pretty good system. If you definitely, if you stand by the virtues, you definitely will live a better life than if you don't stand by those virtues. And so I think that truthiness, that sort of truth-like feeling or aspect that it has, makes it very powerful.
But there is no right or wrong. I mean, if you are playing Shroud of the Avatar, for example, and then you say, okay, I really like this decision or this side, there is no right or wrong, right? You can just choose whatever you find proper.
That's correct. And in fact, what we try to show in Shroud of the Avatar, and this is just coming into the game now, so people are just being able to see this, is that decisions have consequences. And my favorite example still goes back to Ultima 4, the very beginning of me starting to use virtues in games, where there was a woman who would sell you the magic herbs you needed for your magic spells, but she was blind, and she would just ask you to leave with the correct amount of money that she would tell you what you owed her. She would just tell you to please leave it in the coffer as you leave. And but people quickly learned that they didn't have to. They could leave 0 in as they left, and the game would not stop them, and the game would not tell them, that was inappropriate. But of course, the game could detect that they were cheating that woman, and so it would keep score, sort of a karma score. And when later on in the game you needed to go back to the woman for a special clue to win the game, if you've been stealing from her the whole time, she says, well, I'd love to help the hero that's here to save us, but you're the most dishonest, thieving scumbag I've ever met, so no way I'm going to help you. And so you get the idea that, I like that showing the consequences of moral decisions, even when they're complex.
Nice, and but this all sounds like more like a solo game actually. But people are wondering, is this an MMO? Are there MMO parts? Because we obviously have crafting to a certain extent, which is also connected with other players, I think. Then we have a PvE system, but also a PvP system. So right. How would you define the game? Where is it located? Is it more an MMO or more solo game?
I think it's a bridge between both. Even though we can't, for people who are afraid of a multiplayer game, they can literally play solo. However, I don't think that's necessary to have the same story-driven solo-like experience. I think you can play in the more massively multiplayer setting. It is an open virtual world. People have homes and businesses. The crafting is incredibly interconnected to other people. But the way the plot evolves is, first of all, if even in most of my previous work in solo player Ultimas, everyone was on the same plot. Everyone had to become the Avatar. Everyone had to save the gargoyles. Whatever it might have been in a solo player game, everybody had the same experience. What we've designed in this case is a story that, while everyone is exposed to the same variables, everyone sees the same struggles, everyone sees the same general world issues to deal with, but everyone makes their own decision about those ideals. And so your conclusion for you in the story is customized to you. And therefore you can have it at the same time as other people are also questing within that same world.